Well, welcome everyone. I'll get going. It's so great to see you all. And thank you for everyone coming, joining us live today for Seeing for Ourselves, Visual Storytelling and Climate Change. And thanks to everyone watching the recording. Today, we're going to explore how photography can give voice to communities facing the impacts of climate change. Through participatory storytelling, we'll see images help people share their experiences, imagine solutions, and inspire action. I can't wait to dig in, but just a couple of things first. My name is Maggie Summers. I'm the Outreach Director here at Maine Conservation Voters and Maine Conservation Alliance. Our organizations represent more than 14,000 members and supporters dedicated to building a just, thriving future for all by acting on the climate crisis, protecting the environment, and safeguarding our democracy. MCV does that by bringing people and organizations together to educate, inspire, and advocate. And MCV does that by advocating for equitable policies, holding elected officials accountable, and winning elections. And since 2020, this weekly online Lunch and Learn series has helped us advance all of those goals, creating a shared space to explore our environmental and social history, policy priorities, climate action movement, and more. And just quickly, as the year winds down, I want to say thank you, all of you, so much. Everyone who joins us on these weekly programs, for learning alongside us and for being part of this community. It's your curiosity and support that makes these programs possible. And so, thank you so much. And let's get started. I'm so excited to introduce our speakers for today. Jonathan Fisher, the Executive Director of Seeing for Ourselves, and Jimena Argueta, a student participant from the Great Lakes region, right outside of Detroit.
No.
No, Chicago. I'm so
Chicago.
sorry. Right outside of Chicago. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So yes, thank you. Welcome both of you.
Thank
And a
you.
few notes before we dive in. We're going to hear from Jonathan and Jimena first, and then tackle your questions in the Q&A session at the end. You don't have to wait though. Please send your questions to me or Gabe Cole through the chat, and we're going to ask as many of them as possible. And we ask that you please not message Jonathan or Jimena because we want them to be focusing on their presentation. And if you have any technical difficulties, please message Gabe Cole through the chat and he can help you out. And this event is being recorded and I will be posting it later on YouTube, where you can also find a whole slew of programs that we have done over a bunch of different categories. So thank you so much to all of you. And Jonathan, I will pass it over to you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Maggie. It's great to be here, and it's so exciting. I've been looking forward to this for a month, and I'm so excited to see you all. So excited to share this story. Let me share my screen, and we can dive right in. Okay. Okay. So this is about my climate future. I think you all saw a description of our nonprofit and our practice in the Lunch and Learn announcement, but just to refresh a little bit, we deliver participatory photography programming to marginalized individuals and then amplify the new visual narratives to change national conversations. Before getting on to the climate project, I'd just like to walk you through quickly our first three initiatives because they really proved the power of participatory photography and, in a sense, have laid the groundwork for this climate initiative. So the first application of our practice was in the housing projects of New York City. We were embedded there from 2010 to 2014. Talk about marginalized individuals. If you had come across any newspaper coverage of public housing in a New York City tabloid over the last generation, you inevitably saw a story about crime and disrepair. Um, but the Housing Authority, they thought that our programming could turn this narrative upside down. So let's just take a look.
Their lives are really regular lives.
Margaret, how long have you lived in public housing?
I had lived there 53 years. There's always a sad side, but there's a side that is normal. And you're raising kids, scolding them, sending them to school and taking care of them. People going out to work, kids going out to play.
And that's why your pictures include a large basketball court.
Yes, kids need to run and jump somewhere. It might be on asphalt, but they're still running and jumping and having fun and having a childhood.
Chelsea, you had previously done this style of participatory photography with pediatric cancer patients at St. Louis Children's Hospital.
I had a beautiful moment working in that program with a deaf child who photographed people's hands because he signed with sign language. And I think that moment to me really emphasized the beauty of participatory photography and what you can achieve when documenting life that is unmediated by an outside observer.
So after our programming helped residents create a new visual narrative, which we amplified in gallery exhibits all over New York City, an award-winning book, media coverage. New York City and New York State resumed funding of the housing projects. So this was like a proof of concept. You know, it's participatory photography is a really, really powerful tool for influencing a national conversation and changing people's minds. And then New York City, which recognized the impact more than anybody, said, okay, guys, can you please deliver your programming to New Yorkers serving a term of probation? So we were embedded there from 2018 to 2021. And to talk about marginalized population again, for a generation, the media had been treating probation as a slap on the wrist or even a joke, even which was kind of ironic because the practice had been lost its original rehabilitative purpose and turned punitive. New York City felt that our programming could change the narrative and enhance the reputation of both the sanction and those ensnared in this criminal justice intervention, encouraging a return to probation's original purpose. So let's take a look at how this played out.
I look at things different. Everybody has a different point of view. My plans with photography is I'm going to use it to help change the world in a way.
Experience was life-changing for me, and it changed the way I view things.
It made me into a better man, into the man that I wanted to be.
In my photography work, I could inspire people to go down a more positive path.
It's like a second chance.
So after our programming helped folks on probation create a new visual narrative about their lives, we amplified it in gallery exhibits all over New York City, led to a widely noticed book and an award-winning film. The whole effort was embraced by America's community corrections industry, and it actually encouraged reform of probation in jurisdictions around the country. So again, this was another proof of concept of how powerful participatory photography is. It may sound like bragging. We didn't invent the practice, you know, we just latched onto it. But this was another proof of concept. And then the state of Maine, just this year, said, okay, we love those two projects. Can you please now deliver your programming to the state's immigrant communities? Talk about another marginalized population, because the media coverage of these folks has not been entirely complimentary. It's often just concerned about crime. But the state of Maine felt that we might be able to correct public perceptions. And let's see how this worked out.
if you really want to learn about people, just try to spend like a day in their culture, and you're really going to learn the stuff that they value. You're really going to learn why they act a certain way. You're really going to learn the things that make who they are, the things that make up their quality. Behind culture, there's a lot of things that build up to make people who they are.
So these new visual narratives led to a gallery exhibit this past summer in Lewiston where the film was screened, and also another exhibit right now in Thomas Memorial Library in Cape Elizabeth. So if any of you folks are from Southern Maine, you should swing by and take a peek. And then also I submitted the film to Maine Public, so hopefully it'll be broadcast sometime soon and further amplify the new visual narratives. And all that which, proves the power of this participatory photography tool, I think prepares us for taking on something as existential as climate change. And we think youth are yet another marginalized population because they've not been included all that much in the national conversation around climate change. Even though, they have the most skin in the game, they didn't cause this crisis to begin with. That would be like folks my generation. We partnered with Cape Elizabeth High School, with Thomas Memorial Library, I mentioned also in Cape Elizabeth, with Everyday Climate Champions, which is a youth climate group out in the Bay Area, and It's Our Future, which is a youth climate group in Chicago. And we were backed by these wonderful foundations. So the new visual narratives about climate change led to gallery exhibits at Thomas Memorial Library, two of them actually, at Thomas Memorial Library in Cape Elizabeth. And there's one coming up April, May 2026 at FX Collaborative, which is one of New York City's most prestigious architectural firms. They actually are designing the city's upcoming climate museum. And then also we've had expressions of interest from everyone from the Sierra Club to the Climate Film Festival to the California Academy of Sciences. So I think people are latching on to this. We've even been invited to screen the film before the Maine legislature, which is amazing. And, people, my generation might remember the old saying in national politics that as Maine goes, so goes the nation. So if you're listening, California and Illinois legislatures, I'm looking at you. Now, how can a film, which I'm going to screen a segment of shortly, how can the film actually help people engaged in combating climate change? I mean, I think it could be anything from enlisting a screening of the film, virtually or in person, including a Q&A, leveraging the film with your own brand messaging and resources for your stakeholders. You could direct individuals who want to see the film to our website, where it would be available either for free or for a donation of the viewer's choice, and then share in that revenue. And most of all, you could even help underwrite the upcoming PBS broadcast. I mean, you can't buy publicity like that. It's like turbocharging your brand before 3 million customers. But just spreading the word around will help this effort, and yourselves and us, frankly. So now I'm going to screen about 10 minutes of the film, following which you'll be hearing from one of the participants. So bear with me for a moment while I cue up the film.
we're starting to get goldfinches earlier and earlier each year as they migrate back up as if the weather's warming. And we no longer see any brown-capped chickadees because they used to be here for like the first summer or so when we got here in 2010-ish. But then it got too warm for them, so they've moved back further north. So now we only have black-capped chickadees. My name is Trevor Oakley. I'm a junior at Cape Elizabeth High School in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, right next to Portland. So a vernal pool is a body of water, usually smaller and in a forest, that will dry up and reform with the seasons. Haven't ever seen this level of storms, and it's probably just going to get more and more frequent. That's going to change a lot of things. I was raised a pessimist because of the political climate and the economic climate, but I do also realize that we need to be optimistic in order to actually change anything, because if we're pessimistic, nothing in the climate's actually going to be fixed because we'll just accept it as doom and gloom. We need to be optimistic that we can actually fix what we've done. We've seen migratory Canadian geese use this as a place to rest. We've seen ducks enjoying it. We've seen really a medley of everything. What they are is basically just non-native shrubs with a large root area. The root network will start to grow and hold all the dunes together. So then, in the case of another storm surge, the dunes aren't completely washed away. So by keeping the dunes together, it will encourage native plants to grow, which will then encourage native fauna to inhabit this area.
Running dry today, the fish all packed and swam away. The sky's a shade of smoky gray. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? The earth keeps calling our name. The earth keeps calling, the mountains falling, the trees are whispering low. If we don't listen, this world we're missing will be a place we used to know.
When it clicked to my brain that people would cut down these redwoods, I just felt this overwhelming sense of just sadness.
I wanted to share my perspective on the climate crisis and help people who maybe don't know as much about it have a greater understanding of how it affects our world.
Coming here, I get to see different wildlife, including birds, raccoons, and even some possums. I would also say, like, they're taking the spotlight.
Hi guys, I'm doing a photography project. Is it okay if I take some pictures? Alright, thank you very much.
My name is Juan Lobin Schwartz. I went to Evanston Township High School in Evanston, Illinois. plants have a form of intelligence that we have discovered, and the disappearance of these plants will also impact us.
This was Chicago before Chicago. This is what it looked like. Grasslands and prairie.
Our impact has been so great that this system that's been in place for so long is now starting to collapse with our presence. We're fortunate to be right by a large body of water, one of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan. And so we have measures to revert the damage we've done. We have measures to become a sustainable society. We have the technologies, we have renewable energies. We know how to farm sustainably. We need to all unite in order to all be on board with these solutions. I just wanted to put some voice out there about climate change and how we have a greater impact on the world around us than we tend to perceive.
As I stand here, I have a lake and I have various infrastructure all in the same place. This blend of two ideas and contrasting forms of human impact versus natural landscape, it shows how we don't have to harm the earth just because we're here and that we have the opportunity to make it better. My name is Jimena Argueta. I am a junior at Waubonsie Valley High School, which is located in Aurora, Illinois, a west suburb of Chicago. The place I'm taking the photos is an area that has been preserved for tons of years, where people study trees and research them and learn from them. Oftentimes, we are destroying the land when we add new buildings or various different infrastructures. A lot of people might know that the climate crisis exists and that we are dealing with climate change, but they don't know how they can help. We can find a way to combine both nature and these architectures or various places so that we can interconnect ourselves with it. Knowing how things are going at the moment, unfortunately, we aren't getting as much done as we want to. However, I know that we can make a change now, which will benefit our future. Photography is a wonderful way that we can capture the world around us. Incorporating that with sustainability and bringing awareness to climate crisis really made me happy to do this.
I viewed this as a really good opportunity to take my personal experiences over the decade or more I've been here and the change I've experienced in the nature around me and be able to transmit that feeling to others in mass media, because not everyone's going to have the same opportunities as I have to actually visualize this change, and so it personalizes something as broad as climate change. There's so much that can be done and needs to be done, but also it just sort of fascinates me how much I can do to affect something so big.
Having youngsters getting involved in this is wonderful.
So we're back. And that was like a 10-minute segment of the film, which is, I think, we're going to run about 27 minutes, fit within PBS guidelines, hoping to finish it within the next couple of weeks. And now it's always a great pleasure of a director to introduce a star of the movie. So at this point, I'm going to turn over the mic to Jimena.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I was going to show some pictures, if I could pull them up real quick. Perfect. All right. So these are the pictures that I took at the Mortem Arboretum, which is a really beautiful place, which is essentially conserves forests and trees, specifically in Lisle, Illinois. And with this, kind of just to explain, for me, what each picture meant. This one in specific, I saw it as this idea of bringing out power. So we as humans do have this idea that we have the power to make change, right? The power to create change with everything going on with the world. But we also have the power to try and minimize our impact. And while we can't be perfect, we can still find a way to work with nature rather than against it. And such as in this picture, I saw it more as a symbolism of the power lines being amidst nature while not causing too much harm, while preserving the area surrounding it. And the next one. So this one I saw it as a form of blending architecture and nature, which I think is a really unique perspective to take. I think that oftentimes we try to ignore nature when we try to make our buildings, but or structures, but here I saw it as this idea of incorporating it into our daily life to gain a better appreciation of the nature and the world around us. And then for this one, it was very symbolizing of this idea that cars in specific have often a negative impact on the environment, especially those that are powered by fossil fuels. Yet despite this, the car and like the wheel of the car and it being in motion kind of symbolizes this idea of movement and progression, and the fact that we can have this ability to advance in this world with what we're doing with everything related to the climate. And it's kind of this mentality of like we can keep moving forward versus feeling the need to regress. And then this one, it was really neat because most of the trees at the Arboretum have tags on them, which kind of give just a glimpse of like a mini bit of education, if you will. And I think this is a really great symbolism as well to just the idea that we need to educate ourselves on everything that's going on in the world, because I think it really does start with knowing what is happening, and education I think is super valuable with everything happening with climate change, because oftentimes there's so many misconceptions. So I think this idea of bringing more awareness, which what this film does, right? It brings awareness to people and the importance of like, we still have the power to create change. And then this one, it was very beautiful. Everything was in bloom because it was spring. And I think this specifically, it kind of showed that like, sometimes things take time, right? Sometimes it takes time for the flowers to blossom, but it kind of shows how the beauty of it all and how we want future generations to be able to continually see this beauty. And I think it's what we're all trying to strive for, right? Like as a young person myself, I think it's sometimes difficult to know like how the future is going to be, but no matter what, I know that what keeps me going with all this is that I don't want to cause even worse issues for people who are even going to come after me. So I think it's that mentality of like, why are we doing this? Why are we fighting for this at the end of the day? And then this one, I saw it very beautifully in this idea of blending generations. I think it's once again what this film kind of does in this idea of bringing out youth voices, but also like connecting generations together, and that idea that it really isn't an issue that's going to affect all of us. And we're all going to enjoy this world as it is. So we want to kind of keep the idea of protecting our planet as our top priority. And this is my favorite one actually. Daffodils are my favorite flowers, and I thought it was beautiful. Just how I remember the lady who was there told me that it looked like as if they were like smiling at you. And I thought it was kind of this idea of like nature is just so beautiful in itself, right? Like we can't forget what we're fighting for. And it really just showcased to me the beauty of it with its vibrant colors and everything, that it was just like crisp, like crystal clear. I think it really showcased to me that idea of like, I would hate to have this be harmed. Even just a delicate flower, I think that brings so much value to the world. So this was definitely one of my favorites that I took. And then the next one, it kind of once again incorporated those elements of the daffodils, but the perspective that I kind of took past with it was the idea of like being behind a tree and then looking past it to see it like opening up to a form of like landscape. And this kind of showcases the idea that like with spring and everything coming back to life and the new seasons shows new beginnings. And while all of this might be a slower process, right? Everything with climate change, this is no exception, and it's all going to, like all the work that we put in will eventually in the end be seen as worth it, right? And then just the last couple too. This one, it was of the forest and specifically, which was actually a unique area, which was where the first batch of trees were planted here at the Morin Arboretum, who was by the founder who actually initiated Arbor Day, which I think ties back to the history of, once again, I think the history is so important because we understand the past to be able to know how to go forward in the future. And it kind of just showcases how taking care of like nature and trees in specific, it really is a form of caring for our world, and in the end turns out to be caring for ourselves. And then lastly, I saw this as an idea of looking for the beauty in the ordinary. I think that this idea of like something coming, like a plant coming out of like amidst all these rocks, it really showcased this idea that like beautiful things can come out of like even the hardships that we're facing. And it's good not to lose hope because people are still doing things. And it's a matter of just keep trying to work towards making a change where we can and acting more sustainably where we can. And little actions really do make a difference in the end. So that was mostly what my photographs were about. But I guess just to kind of wrap up my message is to you all and my form of call to action is really that as a youth myself, I think it's sometimes difficult to stay motivated in the sense that like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know how it's all going to end up and if what my time and my energy and my action is really going to be worth it. But I don't want to live with the regret of not trying, right? I think it's a matter of little actions ourselves really do add up. And it really is a matter of also trying to find your community and trying to find your voice where you are. So for me, I saw this documentary as a beautiful way for me to showcase my thoughts and everything going on with the climate crisis. Currently myself, I try to get involved as much as I can. And I think it's sometimes though, even if we don't all have the possibility to join groups and organizations, I think it's still a matter of trying to live in a more sustainable minded way wherever we can.
Thank you so much, Jimena and Jonathan. And we can go into some questions and answers now, but I just wanted to say you had me tear up. It was so insightful, and it's up to older folks like us to be supporting the great efforts that young people like you are doing. So thank you so much. And I'm
thank
gonna
you.
pull it together. So Jimena, I know that so you're still in high school, you have class
Yeah.
to get back to after this.
Yeah, I have a test actually.
Well, we definitely want you to be able to get off, leave the meeting in time. So I wanted to start with some questions for you.
Yeah, no worries.
And so, I mean, hearing so much about what you've learned from the project has been amazing. I'd love to hear why you wanted to participate in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. I think something that drew me like initially off the bat, just like by the second I even saw like the title of what the project was for me, like I really just enjoy photography as a passion personally. And then I try to incorporate like any form of like bringing awareness to like the climate crisis in any way that I can. So it's kind of neat because I always try to combine like my different passions. Like even just like for me, like my career in the future, I want to go into environmental nutrition, which is blending my two biggest passions of nutrition and sustainability. So finding a way to blend other passions as well, such as like through photography and things of that. I think it was like it kind of showcases that we can embed this idea of like taking climate action in any way that suits us. It's a matter of you don't have to necessarily do lobbying. You don't have to like go on the political side of things. You can look more at like the arts and the creative aspects. And I think every avenue that you take has its value. So it was kind of a unique approach that I hadn't taken before, but I was so glad that I was able to.
And do you think that joining and participating in the project help you gain more confidence and agency when it comes to, representing your beliefs and talking to people about making change?
Oh, for sure. I think it was a matter of honestly, it was just that idea of like having a platform to share my voice. I think that's something that youth lack a lot, or just don't have the resources to, unfortunately, which is kind of sad because I think we all have a lot to say. But I think having that platform, right, to be able to say something really brought me to also kind of formulate my own beliefs, like solidify them, which I think was really important in the end to kind of be able to get the word out there, and to also gain more confidence in what I was saying at the same time.
That is so great. It seems like so many wonderful things came out of this project. And had you ever done anything like this before you started
Oh,
doing like,
not at all, actually.
and were you like interested in photography, or is this your first chance or first opportunity really with it?
Yeah, I mean, I would do photography like on my own just because I usually like to do like little challenges like just by myself. But I never really had a form of like sharing it with people. It was really just things that I kept to myself. And I think this was kind of a unique way to do it. So very grateful for the opportunity.
And I definitely want to hear about like if you've been talking about it with your friends, how that's changed their perspective, if it's sparked conversations, and have you been spending more time outside in nature with your friends? I'd love to hear
Mm.
how your peers are reacting to this.
Yeah, that's actually a unique question. I think it's kind of a cool conversation starter when I want to kind of talk about more like climate action things because it's like, oh, look, I've been like this like cool documentary, have this experience, but the coolest thing about it was like the message behind it. So it's kind of gives me an opportunity to really talk about that passion that I have for like wanting to do more climate action and like care for the environment. And I think it is something that I kind of take with me and that idea of like even now, like when I go out in nature, just like taking more pictures and things of that and sharing it and being open to that. Um, I think that is really neat. Just the fact of like being able to have conversations about the environment on a more approachable level.
Mhm. And Jonathan, did you have anything to add?
What can you add to that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no, Amanda said it all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and she's wonderful, and all 8 students in this film are wonderful. You
Mhm.
know, so I'm looking forward to you all seeing the finished film. In fact, one of the reasons I held up finishing it is because until now is because I wanted to wrap the content of this very lunch and learn into it. And boy, have we got great footage today.
Oh, I'm
Amazing.
glad.
Oh my gosh. And I have a question for both of you.
Mhm.
So, was the greater connection with people and the environment a goal for this project, or was it more of a side effect? And Jonathan, that may be a starter question for you, and
Mhm.
Jimena, I'd love to hear how you think about that too.
Mhm.
Well, for me, it was a chance to learn because I'm not an expert on climate change at all. In fact, any of these 8 students know way more about the subject than I do. So, and what was great was that each one of the 8 students had their own perspective. So it was an opportunity to learn about all kinds of different ways of looking at climate change. So, it was an education. And for me, and for seeing for ourselves, it's about amplifying others' viewpoints. It's not about promoting our own. Um, so in that sense, it's really up to Amanda to verbalize.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I did see it as a form of like connecting that nature to human aspect. But what Jonathan was saying is what I was just seeing like the preview, right? I was surprised at the like diverse viewpoints as well, which I think is once again kind of the beauty of this like project and everything, just because it brings out those different sides to one major issue that we're all facing, like as humanity as a whole. And I think we all have sometimes mixed feelings about it, but being able to relate to different people like bits by bits, as well as like that nature incorporation to it, like visually, I think that really brought out like the importance of it.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, we see in our society all the time that young people really aren't given the space to be heard,
Mhm.
or if they are heard, they're not taken seriously. And so I just wanted to hear from both of you about, and especially you, Jimena, about why you think it's important to have the voices and stories of young people captured in a project like this, and what is the role of young people to play in the climate movement.
Yeah, I can start that off. I think just as a young person myself, right, I think it's that idea of, right, we don't sometimes always have that platform to speak, but personally, the importance of it is that in the way to say we are the people who are going to grow up and mostly face the consequences that are happening right now. And I think it's kind of hard to know that, but at the same time, as young people often might understand more of what's going on in the future, because that's what they're facing the future, right? They're thinking about the future. It's really on their forefront because it even like right now I'm thinking like, is it, like how is it going to impact the people after me, right? It's very much that forward thinking way. So I think the idea of taking their thoughts into account is very important, because it is who's going to be affected most by it. Not only that, but young people in general often have unique ideas that might not always be taken into account. And I think it's very much can bring that creativity aspect as well. So like even within this film, right, again, like that idea of like photography or other forms of like unique aspects, I think is a great way to just know that like young people do have a voice and they do have good input. So they're worth being heard.
Absolutely.
And for me, from my perspective, it's really also a measure of justice, because people of Himena's generation didn't cause this crisis. It's, folks like me. So, it's I really want to try to correct that. I mean, this idea of the climate project was the brainchild of our late executive director in 2023. He's an older dad, as am I, and we both wanted to do something for our kids who were in high school at the time. So we think, we want it's their generation that's going to be paying the price.
Yes, I think we all have a lot to learn from the folks that are younger than us. I completely agree. And Jimena, if you have time for one more question.
Yeah, no worries.
I'd love to hear how you heard about this project. And then also I definitely want to hear what your favorite moment has been.
Yeah, so actually the way I heard about it was kind of unique. It was through like It's Our Future. So I'm part of it now. I'm actually part of the like school policy committee. I'm one of the co-chairs.
So
However, yeah, but actually the first way I got involved was because Rachel, who's like works with that, she was working with me as long as like a big group of people on the first Youth Climate Justice Summit in all of Illinois, which is so cool because it was held in Chicago and it was like a full day event. And we got people from different schools all over the area. And it was a whole day just focused on climate and climate action and what we can do to help as youth. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity too, and being able to connect with Rachel to then connect with Jonathan to work on this. So definitely kind of a progression, but it was very neat connection. So, and what was your second question, by the way?
What if you've had a favorite moment?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, the being on camera part was kind of cool. Like I had never really had that experience. And like the videographer was super, super sweet. He was honestly like so nice to meet him. And I think it was also really nice because it was during the spring, and getting out to a place that I had actually never gone to. But I knew it was going to be beautiful at that time. It was just like experiencing that form of like reconnection with nature myself, without even necessarily planning it. I think it was very much just a beautiful moment in itself. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing about your experience and all of your incredibly thoughtful and beautiful words. I know I will be rewatching this program very soon to see that. But it has been wonderful having you, Jimena, and we'll let you go.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we'll let you go study. Good luck with your test.
Thank you very
so
much. All right. Bye. Take care, everyone.
And Jonathan, now I'll ask some questions for you.
Okay.
And so I'd love to hear how you got started working with Seeing for Ourselves.
Yeah, it was actually our late executive director, who I mentioned earlier. He was in London in 2002 on vacation, and he stumbled onto an exhibit of photography in a church basement, and he had never seen photography like this before. 2002, that's the era before smartphones. At the time, only well-to-do individuals could afford the equipment to take high-end pictures. But it turned out that a British nonprofit called PhotoVoice had gotten the idea of equipping and training marginalized people to take control of their own public narrative by documenting their lives photographically. And George was just, blown away by all this. He resolved to mount an exhibit of this kind of photography when he got back to New York, 2004, which he did. And into that exhibit walked a guy by the name, a Britisher by the name of Philip Jones Griffiths, who was the world's foremost war photojournalist. He made his reputation primarily by publicizing the impact of Agent Orange in Vietnam. He took George aside at the exhibit and said, George, you really ought to found a nonprofit dedicated to this kind of photography, because nobody in the States is really doing this, and which is kind of ironic because it actually had American origins. Participatory photography, which was originally known as PhotoVoice and George renamed, originated among American aid workers in rural China in 1992. Anyway, George didn't take much convincing, and 2010, Seeing for Ourselves was born. He took on myself as a storyteller, and he found Chelsea, who you may have seen in an earlier clip from Project Lives. She had conducted this kind of program in the pediatric cancer ward of St. Louis Children's Hospital. So she became our photography instructor on the ground, and we were off to the races.
And how do you decide what kind of projects to work on or issues to work on?
Okay, well, Project Lives, I was working at the Housing Authority at the time. So George, Chelsea, and I, we all decided to take advantage of my position. Okay, let's pitch these executives on the idea of delivering programming there. Once we did that, and that program was a success, it was New York City that said, okay, go do probation, because they saw it, the public housing project had a real world impact, that this participatory photography or PhotoVoice is an extremely powerful tool. So that's how we got into that. And then this year, it was the Maine's Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Tribal Populations that said, hey, we love what you do. The immigrant communities could use your programming. So we've said, yeah, yes, sir. And then the climate one was just, as I mentioned, our executive director and I wanted to do something for our kids' generation. So that was the 4, and we're ready for a 5th at some point. If anybody has any ideas, email me. We'll see what we could do.
Amazing. That's an open offer, people. And I will make sure I include Jonathan's email in the follow-up message so you have that. And I know people probably want to know how you decided Maine or Cape Elizabeth to be one of the places that you worked from. So I'd love to hear about that.
Oh, well, I was a New Yorker. My family was in New York until 2017. And then my wife just decided, okay, we've been living in New York for 30 years. I'm a New Englander. I've had enough of New York. So we just put the kids in the back of the covered wagon and hitched up the horses, headed north, and wound up in Cape. And I've loved it, And in a sense, maybe we were climate refugees of a type, because it is a little bit cooler here, and my wife just loves that, absolutely loves that.
And so it was really just where you ended up making your livelihood.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
I love that.
It was so wonderful to link up with Everyday Climate Champions and It's Our Future, because through them, I was able to hire local cinematographers to shoot the effort in the Bay Area, shoot the effort in Chicago without me leaving Cape.
Yeah. That's incredible. It's really, teams make the world go around.
That's right.
And there are so many people who have asked me about how to get involved in this kind of work, if you're hosting workshops, or if there's any educational materials for teachers who would be interested in bringing something like this to their classroom. I'd love to hear if you shared it, this kind of thing before, or how people could get involved.
Oh, I'm connected to a lot of people on LinkedIn, and certainly that's the best way of reaching me, but also email. I mean, Maggie, you're going to share my email address. I could hear through either channel, email or through LinkedIn. I would certainly make PDFs available of our books. In fact, the immigration project this year was handled just that way. Just going back a little bit, our criminal justice effort succeeded so well that New York City decided to hire Chelsea Away to direct a permanently institutionalized program at the probation department. So we kind of lost our photography teacher, and then this past year, George Carano, our executive director, got ill, and I was the last one standing, and I was the only non-photographer out of the trio, which so it could have been a little dicey, but photography has changed so much over the last 20, 30 years. The kids now can take pictures that only a professional could take a generation ago. And
Right.
so with this immigration project, yeah, I conducted a 1 hour in-person workshop and then gave them copies of the public housing book, gave them copies of the criminal justice book. They looked, they said, we got this. And they were off and running. So I would certainly be absolutely happy to make those materials available, on request.
I think you might have some teachers following up with you after this, which is wonderful.
Mhm.
And actually, you kind of touched on this next question, but thinking about how much the world has changed in these past 20 years, how has your work changed in the age of social media? And has your approach changed at all, or how you think about what is going to resonate with a broader audience?
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn a lot more than I used to be. I mean, it used to be LinkedIn was the way you advanced your career. But
Mhm.
now it's really this great forum for people who are very heavily involved in all kinds of worthy causes to connect with each other and share learnings, network. And it's just an amazing form of social media. I mean, I do post on Facebook occasionally, never anything else. Um, but keeping my eyes open.
Mhm.
AI, who knows? I actually
Right.
wound up using in this climate film, even the footage that I just shared today. That song was created with AI, music AI.
Really?
I gave it a prompt and it spit out something which was totally suitable. But in the final film, any filmmakers watching this will be happy to know that I did license an actual song from an actual performer and songwriter and paid thousands of dollars for the privilege. So, I'm not trying to put anybody out of work.
No, you're doing all the things and I feel like it's tricky nowadays. I mean, there is just AI on everything you click on. You go to Google and there's
Mhm.
AI right there. So it's hard to get around it. But I would also love to hear, so thinking about the age that we live in, with social media, with the constant news cycle, there's a lot of disinformation going around there and going around, and climate change is one of these topics that there's often disinformation being spread about. And so I'm just wondering, why or how do you think participatory photography is a powerful tool in the fight against disinformation?
Well, we've always prided ourselves in having our work, of having fans across the political spectrum.
Hmm.
That was true with our public housing initiative. It was true with our criminal justice initiative. Um, and I believe it will be true of our immigration and climate change initiative. I mean, we are, a nonpartisan nonprofit. We don't take political stands. And we try to produce works that are heartwarming and not tendentious and that not policy papers and that people of all persuasions can get behind. So
Hmm.
that's how we do our work.
Hmm. Thank you so much. And I feel like we have time for at least one or two more questions before we go back to the call to action. But why do you, or what do you think separates participatory photography as a medium, and why it is such a powerful tool for storytelling?
Because it's allowing the people with skin in the game to create their own images.
Hmm.
This certainly was like revolutionary back in the tool's origins in 1992. This
Hmm.
was I mentioned American aid workers in rural China developed this technique because they had been seeing that local Chinese officials were taking pictures of rural Chinese women, and there was something missing. There was, it looked like it was views from the outside. And so it had occurred to these aid workers that, well, okay, maybe if we turn these cameras over to these women, they could, and they ask them to document their own lives, they can come out, like, they could produce something that a little bit different.
Hmm.
Well, and lo and behold, they did. And the difference was, was immediately evident to all who saw the comparison.
Yeah.
So I think it's from its very origins. It's had this very special, niche kind of impact. And that's been growing in popularity ever since, even in the Instagram age, right? I mean, you might have thought that with the development of those kind of tools that there wouldn't be a need for it, but if we can provide like a book, if we can provide gallery exhibits, so we can provide a film that's screened by PBS, that's not necessarily something that somebody's going to be able to do with Instagram.
Absolutely. And I wanted to end with the same question that I ended on for Jimena, and to see if you have a favorite moment out of this project.
I think it's just now. I mean, really, just seeing Jimena. I mean, really. I mean, you brought tears to your eyes, brought tears to my eyes as well.
Yeah, that was, I am absolutely going to be rewatching this one and sharing with my friends and family, as I hope you all do. Thank you so much, Jonathan and Jimena. We're sending our gratitude to you too. And I just wanted to remind you all that there's a number of ways you can support this project, whether it's hosting a screening of the film, either in person or virtually, encouraging people to go to the Seeing for Ourselves and Picturing My Climate Future website, which I will link to in the follow-up, and supporting the PBS broadcast by helping to underwrite this project. I know many of us here watch PBS, and so we are that kind of audience that will be seeing that message, and more. And I will be sharing this afterwards. But just thank you so much, Jonathan, for your time. And I hope you all join me next week. I'll be joined by Sarah Woodbury, who is our lobbyist, our legislative director here at MCV, and the assistant majority leader for the Maine House, which is Representative Lori Gramlich. And we'll be talking about the preview of Maine's 2026 legislative session. So exciting stuff, continuing on this journey of good work. And yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
again.